Hello everybody. In this video, I'm going to be going over questions 1 through 12 from the June 2023 Algebra 2 Regents exam to help you prepare for your upcoming exam. So I'm just going to dive right into question number 1. So question number 1 says the population of Austin, Texas from 1850 to 2010 is summarized in the table below. Then it gives you the table and says over which period of time was the average rate of change in population the greatest. So a couple things I'm noticing right at first. Average rate of change is a formula. When you see those words, you immediately need to be thinking about the average rate of change formula. So the average rate of change formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which means you need 2 points, an x1, y1, and an x2, y2. Then I noticed it says which one is the greatest. For you to be able to tell which choice has the greatest average rate of change, you're going to have to find the average rate of change for all 4 choices and then compare them. So it's kind of a lengthy question. Let's just start with choice 1 and go on from there. So choice 1 wants you to find the average rate of change between these 2 years, 1850 and 1910. So that means that for this question, my x1 and y1, x2, y2 are going to be labeled as such. Your year or your time or that number on the top is usually going to be your x values, but it'll always give you an interval of x values. So when I plug it into my average rate of change formula, my y2 I have labeled as 29,860 minus my y1, which I have labeled as 629, over my x2, which is 1910, minus my x1, which is 1850. Now, depending on your calculator, we'll tell you how you're going to plug this in. If you have the 83 calculator, plug in the whole top first, then plug in the bottom. You'll have number, and then you will divide them. If you have the 84 calculator, hit your alpha, y equals enter to get the fraction, and then type it in. So this one's 29,860 minus 629 over 1910 minus 1850. And I got about 487, so I'm just going to write that down next to choice 1, 487.183, repeating. So you're going to do that with all 4 choices. Just to save some time in the video, I'm going to tell you what the remaining choices are. When you do choice 2, you should get 14,805-ish. Choice 3 is 5,967, and choice 4 is 2,965. So pause the video, take your time, do choices 2, 3, and 4 that exact same way by getting your x1, x2, y1, y2, all the numbers, plug them in, and make sure you get these values. Now that I have these values, and technically I did the average rate of change 4 times, I just didn't show my work. Of course, you would do the same thing for all of them over here. You're going to see which one is the greatest, which is just the biggest number. So the greatest average rate of change here is definitely going to be 14,000. It's way bigger than the other choices. So it'd be choice 2. All right. For the next one, it says which expression is not equivalent to. So I'm going to show you the right way and the shortcut way to solve this question. So when it says equivalent to, or for this one, not equivalent to, it's really not giving you directions on what to do. You just have to look at the answers and see which one would end up equaling, or in this case, not equaling the original expression. So there's a couple different ways to do this. What I'm noticing is that this can be factored. This is difference of perfect squares, so I can do dops to that to see which one it is equivalent to. So when I do dops, remember it is a plus and a minus, and you're going to square root these pieces to figure out what goes in the blanks. So the square root of 36x to the 6th is going to be 6x to the 3rd. That's going to go in the front spot of each of my dop setups for factoring. And then the square root of 25y to the 4th is 5y squared. So that goes here and here. So when you look at your choices, there is one that says that. It's this one, choice 2. That means that choice 2 is equivalent. And remember, it's asking for which one is not. So I'm going to get rid of choice 2. So I am kind of seeing one that's looking quite wrong because it's very close to that one, but I'm going to hold off for a second and keep going through these. So the rest of them aren't really set up to just do the factoring and see. So what we're going to do is we're going to simplify the answers to see if they end up equaling the original expression. So I'm just going to clear that up. And let's look at choice 1. Choice 1 has a lot of things that are being multiplied together. This is all being multiplied, and this is all being multiplied. So first I'm going to focus on these variables here. When you have a power raised to a power, you have to multiply them. This 6 is being squared. So 6 squared is 36, and when I multiply those exponents, I get an x to the 6th, which is matching up, but I need to check again for the next term. 5 squared is 25. And then for my variable, I'm going to do the same thing. A power to a power means I multiply those together. That would get me y to the 4th, which is exactly what I have here. That means that choice 1 is equivalent. But again, I repeat, we are finding which one is not equivalent. So choice 1 is not the answer. Okay, because I know the answer, I'm going to jump you down to choice 4. Choice 4 is that same kind of idea where you just want to simplify what they have. These are being multiplied together, so I'm going to multiply those. 3 times 2 is 6, and that'll stay x to the 3rd. And I'm just going to bring this down, minus 5y squared. And then same thing here. 3 times 2 is going to be 6. I got ahead of myself there. And that'll be plus 5y squared. This, if you notice, is the same as choice 2. It's also the same thing that we got when we did the difference of perfect squares, which means it is equivalent, so choice 4 is not the answer. Choice 3 is going to be the answer. If you're the kind of student that wants to like double, triple, quadruple check, the work that you would have to do to show that 3 is incorrect or not equivalent is multiply this out. So it's 2 terms times 2 terms. I'm going to double distribute it. 6 times 6 is 36, but x to the 6th times x to the 6th is x to the 12th. And right away, it does not match up. You can keep multiplying it out, but you'll see that there's no x to the 12th anywhere in that original, so this one has to be the one that is not equivalent to. Okay, so that's the mathy way to do this question. But remember in class we talked about these like equivalent to shortcuts to at least check your answer or to use in a pinch when you don't know what to do. You guys have a calculator and multiple choice answers here. There's a lot that you can do. This one is a lengthy shortcut. But when in a pinch, if you didn't know what to do or if you just wanted to check your answers with the remaining time, it's a good way to do it. So what you can do, again, anytime it says equivalent to or not equivalent to, is substitute numbers in. Whatever numbers you want, please avoid 0 and please avoid 1. Okay, because sometimes when you add 0 or if you multiply by 1, it doesn't work out. You need to pick, I always do x is 2 and y is 3. You can pick any other numbers though. So what I'm going to do is substitute a 2 in for x, so this will be a 2, and put a 3 in for y. And I'm just going to type that into my calculator. So 36 times 2 to the 6th minus 25 times, I'm using a 3 for y, to the 4th. So when I typed in the original expression using x is 2 and y is 3, I got that this is equal to 279. Now think this through. If I plug in x is 2 into all of my choices and y is 3 into all of my choices, if it's not equivalent to it, it's not going to equal 279. So let's try it for choice 1. I'm going to type in 6 squared times, instead of x, I'm going to type in a 2. Remember, because I forgot I erased that, sorry. X is 2 and I'm using y is 3. So all I'm doing is I'm putting a 2 here instead, but it's still to the 3rd. I'm going to close my parentheses and raise that to the 2nd, and then I keep typing. Minus 5 squared times, I'm going to use a 3 for y squared, parentheses, raised to the 2nd. And I got 279. But remember, we're finding which one is not equivalent to, and that one is equivalent. So bye-bye. Now choice 2, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm typing it in with a 2 in place of the x and a 3 in place of the y. Same thing here, 2 and 3. So this is going to be parentheses 6, then I plug in the 2, it's to the 3rd, minus 5 times, there I'm going to plug in a 3 because there was a y there. Oops, I lost my spot. Is that right? 6 times 2 to the 3rd minus 5 times 3 to the 2nd. What is happening? Hang on. 5 times 3 to the 2nd. Okay, yes. Sorry, I lost my spot. I think I started copying the other choice. I don't know. Anyway, I keep typing. So 6, then I'll type in the parentheses 2 to the 3rd plus 5 times 3 to the 2nd. And I again get 279. So that one is equivalent, aka that one would not be my answer. When you type in choice 3, I'll just show you. I'm not going to plug in choice 4. We know that it's equivalent. You should check all 4 choices if this was your actual exam. I just don't want to take up too much time. Okay, hang on. Choice 3. We're just going to start over. 6 times, I'm going to put in a 2 for x, a 3 for y, 2 for x, 3 for y. So it's 6 times 2 to the 6th. If you get the gist and you don't need to see this one being wrong, you can just skip ahead. But this is a really good checking method, you guys. It's so helpful, especially for my people that are stumped on a question. You guys know there's always another way. So that is not equal to 279, which means this is the one that is not equivalent to. But see how I just plugged in the 2 for x, I plugged in the 3 for y. Done. It doesn't need to be 2 and 3. Those were hypothetical, but whatever numbers you use up here, you have to use for your 4 choices as well. Okay. All right, choice 3. What are the zeros? This is a vocab term. We need to know that. It makes this question very easy. Zeros are where the graph crosses the x-axis. More specifically, I should actually write graph. As soon as you see the word zeros, zeros are where the graph crosses the x-axis, so I'm going to have to graph this. So I'm going to go to my calculator. I'm going to clear this all out, and I'm going to type that in. It's a long equation, so please type it in carefully. So it is x to the 4th minus 9x squared plus 3x to the 3rd. Wouldn't it be funny if I told you to type it in carefully and then typed it in wrong? 9 squared plus 90. So I'm actually seeing now that there were some like terms. I could have simplified this a little bit so I didn't have to type in as much, but ultimately you do still have to type it in. And then I'm going to look at the graph of this. So when I look at my graph, I want to see where it crosses the x-axis. So I can't draw my calculator. You're just going to have to like visualize what I'm saying. Oh, I can. Wait, what? Okay, I can. So you can see that first like box is at a -5. This box is at a -3. So far I have -5, I have -3. It also crosses over here at a 2, and it crosses again at 3. You're just going to be able to look at your calculator and see where it crosses. I know you can't touch yours like I can use on my app. I just wanted to show you where I was looking at, which is why I was poking it. But if you look on yours, you'll see it crosses at those 4 numbers, which will be choice 4. It's not a super tough question as long as you remember this word zeros. If you don't know that word zeros, you're kind of out of luck. So it's a really good question if you know that vocab term. And then these squiggly wigglies, just so you know, the little curly brackets, is when you use, what you use when you have multiple of the same value. So all of those are x values. Because they're all x values, you put them in your squiggly wigglies. Versus like if you have an x comma y as a solution, that's when you use the parentheses instead. Okay? All right, on to number 4. So if theta is an angle in standard position whose terminal side passes through the point -2, -3, what is the numerical value of tangent? So when you are doing a question like this, you are going to have to draw a picture. So the way we talked about this in class, if you remember, is if you have fractions, if you're working with sine, cosine, and tangent, and you have fractions, which notice the answers are fractions, it's going to be SOHCAHTOA. So those answers are giveaways that we're going to have to do. SOHCAHTOA, which is right triangle trig. So I'm going to plot that point to start. -2, -3 is going to be down here in the 3rd quadrant. That'll be important in a little bit, you'll see. And then I'm going to draw my triangle. Remember the bow tie thing. So it should be, your triangle should be in the shape of the bow tie. So the triangle down here should be looking like this, like that blue triangle I just drew. I'm going to make it a little bit neater, but I just wanted to remind you of that bow tie thing. So this is my right triangle. Because again, bow tie. Okay, now your theta is going to go from the center always. And even though no sides are labeled, they gave me this point. Remember, to get to this point, I had to go left 2. So this is going to be a value of 2. And I had to go down 3. So this is going to be 3. Now, I know left and down are negative values, but we'll talk about the positive and negative after we do the SOHCAHTOA. Okay, so I just labeled left 2, down 3. I have those sides labeled. What I need to find is tangent. So tangent is TOA. That means I have to do opposite over adjacent. So when I label my triangle, and again, this is theta, so I'm labeling it from there. Your opposite is going to be the side opposite theta, so I'm going to label this opposite. The side next to is going to be your adjacent, and then remember the hypotenuse is always across from the right angle, so this will be my hypotenuse. So if I was missing a triangle side length, I would have done a squared plus b squared equals c squared, but notice I have my opposite and I have my adjacent already. So I'm going to plug them in. The opposite is 3, the adjacent is 2. So my answer is 3 over 2, but hang on. Oh, never mind. Sometimes the answers are going to have the positive and the negative version, so I do want to talk about that anyway, even though it doesn't apply to this question. We can see that it's choice 2. But sometimes, like, one of the choices will be like -3/2, and you have to know whether it's positive or negative. So that's why I just want to talk about it. If you remember when we were doing triangles and trigonometry and all of this, we learned ASTC. All students take calculus. It is inside of a plus sign. So this is where the trig functions are positive, and we're in quadrant 3. In quadrant 3 is the letter T, which tells us that tangent is positive in quadrant 3. That's why your answer is positive and not negative. If we were finding tangent in quadrant 4, the answer would have been -3/2. Or in quadrant 2, and we were finding tangent, that also would have been negative. It just depends what quadrant you are in. Okay, number 5. Number 5 looks worse than it is, trust me. So number 5 says the average monthly temperature T of M in degrees Fahrenheit over a 12-month period can be modeled by the equation blah, where M is in months. What is the range of temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit of this function? You have to know that range means Y values. So when you are talking about a trig function, the Y values or the range come from 2 different numbers in this equation. So let's go over the numbers again. The number in the front is your amplitude. This is called your midline. It is also known as a vertical shift. Vertical shift. This number is B, which is your frequency, but it helps you come up with the period. Okay, so there's 3 different pieces of information given to us here. When we're talking about Y values, the 2 numbers that are going to be important are the amplitude and the vertical shift. Frequency and period is not important because the period is the length of one curve. So it's like the length from here to here, and that's horizontal. That has nothing to do with my Y values. So now let's talk about these Y values. The amplitude. The definition of amplitude for a trig graph is how far down and how far up a graph goes. So that means because the amplitude is -23, the graph is going to go down to 23 and up to +23. So before the graph is shifted, it goes from -23 to +23. So if I'm picturing this cosine curve, it goes like that. Actually, it's a negative cosine curve, my bad. It's at -23 down here to +23 up here. But then it shifts. This plus 56 tells me to move up 56. Now, if I'm moving this whole graph up, this number is going to go up, and so is this number. So I'm going to add 56 to both of these to come up with my new and final range. When I add 56, it is going to get me 33 and 79, which is going to be choice 2. All right, the next one, which expression is an equivalent form? Equivalent, there it is again. I'm going to go over the shortcut with you again on the calculator, but I'm going to teach you the right way first, okay? So this is given as a radical. When you have a radical, you have to do TBO. Remember, TBO stands for top, inside, bottom, outside. So this A out in front is just going to come down for now. I'm also going to add that it's A to the first, just so we remember that that exponent's there. And then this is the 5th root of A to the 4th. I have to rewrite that without the root. So the top number is going to come from the inside. This will be a fraction up in the exponent. The inside number is a 4, that's going to go on top. The outside of the radical number is a 5, that's going to go on the bottom. It's top inside, bottom outside. So now I have 2 A's. These A's are being multiplied together. I can see because there's no symbol between them. That's what tells me they'll be multiplied. So to multiply variables together, the rule is to add the exponent. So I'm going to do 1 plus 4/5. And I get 1.8, which doesn't help me because look at my choices. So I'm going to press math, enter, enter, and I get 9/5. So that means that my answer is going to be A to the 9/5, which is choice 2. Sometimes it will tell you to turn it back into a radical, and you would just have to TBO it back. It would be A to the 9 and the 5th root. This one did not, but it's just a quick reminder just in case that does show up on your exam. All right, now that was the right way to do this mathematically. Here's the cheat code way or just the way to check your work. So again, when you see that word equivalent, you can plug in numbers in place of the letters. So for this one, the letter is A. You can use any number you want. I'm going to use a 2. So when I go to type this into my calculator, I'm going to put a 2 here and a 2 here. Again, I'm hypothetically using a 2. You can use any number you want. So it's 2 Then you have to get the fifth root. If you don't remember how to get the fifth root, remember you click math and go down to the nth root. It'll let you type a 5 in place of there, and then it's 2 to the 4th. For those of you that have the TI-83 calculator, you have to hit the 5 first, then hit the math button, okay? So I plugged in 2 to the original, and it's not a great number, but it's fine. I'm just trying to find out which one is equivalent to. So that means that this original one was 3.482202, blah, 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 okay? So now, if I plug in 2 to choice 1, it's just 2. That's not equivalent. Goodbye. This one is going to be 2 to the 9/5. I'm going to type that in, 2 to the 9/5, and look at what I got. Equivalent. 3.48, blah, 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 blah. That's got to be my answer. When this is your exam and you're banking on all points possible to do as well as you can, you should plug in all choices. So I'm going to show you the next one. 2 to the 9/4 got me 4.7, blah, blah, blah. That's wrong because it doesn't match this. And 2 to the 1/5 got me 1.1486, blah, blah, blah. Also wrong. Goodbye, goodbye. Choice 2 it is. So 2 different ways to do the same question. Oh my gosh, look at number 7. Equivalent to. There it stinking is again. It's all over this exam. Okay, I'm going to show you the right way first, and then we'll go over the checking, cheat code, shortcut way. So I have to distribute. It's the only thing that can be done to this original expression to simplify it in any way. So when I'm multiplying these first two things together, 3 times a is 3a, and I times I is I squared. We'll talk about that in a second. 3 times -6 is going to be a -18, and I times I to the second, remember you add your exponents together when you're multiplying, will get you I to the third. Remember, I is not your typical variable. I is an imaginary or complex answer. You cannot leave an I with an exponent. Look at all of your answers. None of them have an I squared or an I to the third. They have to be simplified. So you should have memorized what I squared and I to the third are. I squared is -1 and I to the third is -I. If you forget on your exam, you can type it into your calculator by hitting second decimal, raise it to the second. It'll tell you it's -1. If you forgot what I to the third is, type it in. It'll tell you it's -I. Use it as a backup plan, okay? Double check. It's no harm. So now I'm going to plug these in place of what they are. So I squared is -1. I to the third is -I. So now this whole thing multiplied together will get me -3a. This multiplied together will get me plus 18i because they're two negatives, and that's going to be choice 3. So now for equivalent to, you want to plug a random number in for the letters. Now I'm not going to plug anything in for I because I is a button on the calculator, so you can just hit that, but you want to make sure you're in the right mode. So before we keep going, I'm going to go to mode, and you want to go down to where it says real and change it to A plus BI. This won't affect anything else on your calculator, so you can leave your calculator in that mode the whole time, no big deal, but you definitely want it in that for this because all of these are in A plus BI form. Okay, and again, I'm doing this trick because it says equivalent to. So you're not going to plug anything in for I, but you are going to plug in something for A, and I am again going to use 2. So when I type this in, I'm going to do 3I parentheses 2I, see how I just put the 2 in place of the A, minus 6I squared. Enter. And I got -6 plus 18I. So I'm going to plug in all 4 choices doing the same thing. This will be a 2, a 2, a 2, and a 2. The answer is kind of like right in your face. This one you don't have to plug all of them in per se because -3 times 2 is -6, and then that's just going to be plus 18i. So you can, of course, plug them in. Like choice 1 would be 3 times 2 plus 18i. When I press enter, it says 6 plus 18i, which is not correct. I'm supposed to get -6. And the next one says minus 18i. That one's not right. Of course, you can plug them all in, and you should plug all of them in when you're unsure, but this one's going to be choice 3 for equivalent to. So that was 3 already that we could have used the equivalent to trick for. It's a really, really, really helpful trick. Okay, for number 8, it says which equation best represents the graph below? So you're going to have to remember what a regular log graph looks like. You can also plug in numbers for this. So I'm going to actually show you that way because I think like hypothetically, when you plug in different numbers, it's a little bit easier. So even though they're letters, when you look on the graph, we can say that C is 1 because if it's up 1, I'm going to use a different color. Hang on. C is 1. This is -1. This would be -2 because it's 2 boxes over, and A is 2. So I'm going to plug those in each of these formats. So A is 2 and C is 1. So this would be 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. And then you're just going to plug each one in. So I'm going to go to my y equals, clear out that other one, hit my log button of x plus 2 plus 1, and I hit graph. So kind of not the best first example to be looking at because it actually is the answer. I like when you see a wrong one first because then like it's very obvious when you see the right one. But this is the right answer because of where it's shifted. So I am going to kind of go over that with you as well. When it's in the parentheses, remember it's an opposite shift and it's horizontal. So it's either going to be right or left. When you see plus 2, it's going to be left 2 because it's the opposite. And on the outside, it's vertical, so either up or down, and it's true. So that plus 1 would be up 1. And you can see that this one did shift left 2 and up 1. So then I'm going to show you with the other ones why they are not correct. So this one is the log of x minus 2 plus 1. I don't think I typed that in right. What? Maybe I cleared it. Where did I type that? My bad. I did not type it in the y equals. So it is going to be log of x minus 2 plus 1. So this one's going to shift to the right, and you'll see when you hit graph that now it's over on the right side. It's like over here, which is definitely not correct. So again, it's a lot easier when you see a wrong answer first because like you can clearly see those graphs do not match up. So I'll show you just one more. It is the log of x plus 2 minus 1. So that one's going to go down 1, and you'll see it's a little bit lower. So this one crosses here, and this one not so much. It doesn't even cross until 8 on the x-axis. So that one's wrong, and then the fourth one's wrong as well. Please take a second, practice plugging it in, just so you know. But there we go with that one. It's a really good example for shifts, but also plugging in numbers is just a little bit easier, in my opinion. All right, number 9 is about end behavior. We have to be able to read what this says. So that arrow means approaching. So what this is saying is as x, this first sentence here, as x is approaching negative infinity. That's a fancy code way of saying we're going to the left. The reason that means left is because think about your x-axis. It's the horizontal one. As it's going towards negative infinity, we're going to the left. So it's basically saying as the graph is going to the left, and now I need to read this one. F of x means y, and it's saying that y is going to negative infinity. Now, if we're talking about y is an up and down change. If y is going to negative infinity, that means that y is going in the downward direction. So what this is saying is as the graph goes left, it goes down. So I have 4 choices here. We're going to have to check them. Of course, we're going to check the graphs first. They are much easier. So looking at the first graph, as it's going to the left, notice the graph is going in the upwards direction. It's going left and up. That does not match what this says with left and down, so goodbye. Choice 2 is the same thing. As it's going to the left, the graph is going up over here. It's going left and up, so this one is also incorrect. Now, it helps to see the graph. So for choice 3, I'm going to have to graph that. 5 times 4 to the negative x. Make sure you get that negative up there. I'm going to hit graph. Did I do it wrong again? Oh my gosh, did I plug it in the other thing again? Oh my gosh, on my calculator, when I hit clear, it goes to the home screen. I'm just realizing that now. So every time I hit clear twice, and I'm a button masher, I click clear a lot. It just takes me to the home screen. So I'm sorry. Now I hit graph, and I'm seeing that my graph looks like this. So if this is my graph, all I'm looking for is left and what it's doing. As we go to the left, this graph is going up as well. All of these were going in the upward direction. Goodbye. So do not just circle 4 and move on. Practice plugging it in and make sure it goes left and down. So I'm going to go to my y equals. I'm going to hit clear once, and I'm going to type this in. So my TI-84 calculator people, when there's a number down here, you can't just hit the log button. To get that down there for 84 calculators, you have to press math, alpha, math. For the 83 calculator people, unfortunately, it's a little bit harder for you, but you have to type it in with 2 logs. You're going to type in the log of what's in the parentheses divided by the log of that base. So depending on your calculator is how you are going to type it in. And then you just put that 5 down there if you do the math, alpha, math. and then I hit graph. And then I look at it, it is going like, that is not a good example, like this. But big picture is as it's going to the left, see how it's going in the downward direction, left and down, it has to be choice 4, where all the other ones were going up like this, and that was left and up, wrong. Perfect. Number 10, we just have a few more questions to go in this video. Oh my goodness, you will not even believe it. Boom, is equivalent to. So once again, I'm going to show you the right way, and then I'm going to show you the checking way, cheat code way, etc. All right, so the expression blah is equivalent to. So what I'm going to do is start simplifying this original expression. There's actually quite a bit going on in this question. Yikes. Here we go. So this is being squared. The first thing I'm going to have to do is write it twice. I'm actually going to go over here because this is a lot to write. So it's x squared plus 3 times x squared plus 3. I'm going to distribute this one through, so it'll be negative 2x squared minus 6, and then I bring down the negative 24. So now I'm going to have to, I'm going to double distribute this out, so it'll be x to the 4th when I do x squared times x squared. This is plus 3x squared plus 3x squared. I always teach my students to add those together, plus 3x squared plus 3x squared. That'll get you plus 6x squared. If you can't do that in your head, just don't. It's okay. And 3 times 3 is plus 9. Then I'm just going to bring everything else down for now, minus 2x squared minus 6 minus 24. And now I have to combine it all. So I only have one x to the 4th. I'll combine my x squared, so it'll be plus 4x squared. And then I'll combine my numbers, negative 21. Okay, so now if you look at the answers, there are a couple that are in that format, but unfortunately none of them are my answer. So when I look at the answers that are in this format, choices 3 and 4, see what it says x to the 4th minus 2x squared. That doesn't match, so it's not equivalent. And x to the 4th plus 4x squared minus 9, also not equivalent. So choices 1 and 2 are in factored form. So what that means is I'm going to have to take this and now factor it after all of that. So I need to figure out, this is an easy trinomial because of that 1 in front. I have to figure out what multiplies the negative 21 that adds to 4. So those two numbers are going to be 3 and 7. And to make it add to a positive 4, it's going to have to be a negative 3 and a positive 7. So the way we were writing this with easy trinomial in class is x minus 3 and x plus 7, but you have to make sure you get this back. It's like that easy trinomial with a twist. If I multiply this x and this x together, I get x squared, and I'm supposed to get an x to the 4th. So that means I'm going to have to add a squared to each of these, and it is equivalent to choice 2. So not too bad of a question, but you know, it was a lot of math involved. You just have to be careful. Not too bad. So because it has the equivalent to, we're going to take this all back. It's a lot of math. It's not bad. It's actually good math, but you know, to check our answer, or if in a pinch we were completely clueless on what to do, we're going to plug in a number. So there's only one letter in this, and it's x. I'm going to use x equals 2. You do you. So I'm going to put a 2 here, and I'm going to put a 2 here, and I'm going to type that original 1 into my equation, or into my calculator. And the reason I'm doing that is because it says equivalent to. You can do this anytime it says that. Okay, so this one is going to be 2 squared plus 3 squared minus 2 times 2 squared plus 3 minus 24. I don't think I missed anything. That gets me 11. So now when I plug in the first choice, which we at this point know is wrong, so we already did it the right way, we should not be getting something equivalent to. So I'm just going to type it in real quick. I got x squared plus 9 and x squared minus 1. I got 9. So that's definitely not right. I'll try choice 2. X squared minus 3. Now we know this one is right, so we should be seeing the same thing. I probably typed in something wrong. 2 to the 2nd plus 3 squared minus 2. What did I type in wrong? Oh my gosh, I typed in an X. I'm so sorry. I'm getting to the end of the video and I'm totally losing my mind. You guys are probably like, what is she doing? You have to type it in with the 2. So actually, this brings me to my next point. The way I teach it in class is if you want to store the 2 for the X in your calculator, you can. So I would do 2 stow X, and what that does is every time you type in an X, it'll plug in the 2 for you. So you don't have to do that. It's just like a cheat code to the cheat code. That's why I've been showing you the 2 the whole way, but I will show you this now. So what I just did is I clicked to get that. I clicked the number first, 2, stow, x, enter. I'll pretend I made that mistake on purpose, not that I'm exhausted. So when I do 2 stow x, now every time I type in an x, it will plug in a 2 for me. So you can just type in x squared plus 9 and x squared minus 1, and it'll plug in the 2 for you. So it shouldn't have been that 9.3. It'll be 39. Still wrong, but at least it's plugged in right now. That's the same thing that you get when you plug in the 2 anyway. I'm just showing you minus 1. Boom. You get the exact same thing when you type in a 2. It's just storing the 2 in your calculator for x, and then you can type it in with an x. So I'm going to type in choice 2 now. Now that I actually stored the number for x, that's helpful. X squared, oops, plus 7. Oh, come on. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, you guys. Clearly, what is happening? I don't even see what I typed in because I deleted it. Okay, 100th time is the charm. I don't even know what I typed in last time. There we go. We got 11. 11 matches 11. Boom. I promise it is the easier way if you type it in correctly. If you make 7 mistakes like I do, it might be the harder way. You do you. Okay. But do promise me that when you use this little trick to check your work, or when you're in a pinch and you forget what to do, when you see equivalent to, check all 4 answers. So you should also be checking the third choice, x to the 4th minus 2x. Oh my gosh. I cannot even believe I just typed that in wrong again. X to the 4th minus 2x squared minus 21. You get the wrong answer, and then you get the wrong answer if you do choice 4 as well. I'm not even going to do it because we all know I'm going to do it wrong. Okay. Whew. Number 11. What is the solution to the system of equations below? So there are a couple different ways to do this question. I am going to show you the right way, which is a little lengthy. I'm going to show you 2 shortcuts. So if you want to jump around to this question, if you want to jump ahead, you do you. I'm going to show you this question for a while. Okay, so the right way to do this question is quite lengthy. You have to label your equations A, B, and C. What you're going to do is one at a time, add 2 of your equations together to cancel a variable. The one that makes the most sense to cancel for this equation is going to be the z's, because I have positive z's and negative z's, and those will cancel out nicely. So I'm first, for my step 1, going to put equations A and B together because there's a positive z and a negative z. So I always put my z's with a little slash through them, and I try to make my 2's loopy. If you're the kind of person that makes a 2 like this and your z's like this, please be careful. Okay, try to make loopy 2's for these questions. Okay, I'm going to add these together, and my z's are going to cancel. So when I add them, I get 2x minus y equals negative 2, and we're just going to call that equation D for labeling purposes. And now I have to do that again. So steps 1 and 2 are the exact same. You just have to do them with different equations. For step 2, I'm going to use equations B and C because of that same reason as the first one. There's a negative and a positive z. So this is x minus, swoopy 2, minus 2y minus z equals negative 4, and x minus 9y plus z equals negative 18. I'm going to add those together as well, and those z's will cancel. So I'll get 2x minus 11y equals negative 22, and let's, for just labeling purposes, call that equation E. Step 3 is to put equations D and E together. So I'm going to write 2x minus y equals negative 2. I'm just recopying, and 2x minus 11y equals negative 22. Okay, now your goal for equations D and E is to also make this magic happen where things cancel. But nothing cancels out right now. You're going to have to simplify one of these. So, not simplify, but change it. What I am noticing is these are both 2's. 2 and 2 add to 4. Those don't cancel, but if one of those was negative, they would cancel. So what I'm going to do is multiply this whole equation through by a negative. So when I put a negative through to all of these, it's going to make this a negative 2x, a positive 11y, and what you do to one side, you do to the other, so that'll be a positive 22. And now this equation is being replaced with that green one. But when I add these together now, these cancel. My y's will get me 10y, and negative 2 plus 22 is 20. And this is a very easy equation to solve. I just have to divide by 10, and I get y equals 2. So that means my middle number has to be a 2. So this, sorry, that happens sometimes. This one is a 2, this one's a 2, this one's a 2, that one's not. So all I figured out so far is that it's not choice 2. But once you have one of your variables solved for, you can solve for the other ones by just plugging in. Now, I cannot plug in two equations A, B, or C right now because if I took y as 2 and plugged it in, I'm still missing 2 and that won't help me. So for step 4, you are going to plug the answer that you got in step 3 into either equations D or E, whichever one you think looks easier. You'll get the same answer either way. You can even plug it into both to make sure you get the same answer. To my overachievers. And then you just solve this equation. So I get 2x equals 0, divide by 2, and I get x equals 0. So when I look, that only eliminates choice 1 because both of these have an x of 0. But now that I know that x is 0, and I have my y value still, I can plug them into one of the original, A, B, or C equations. Oh, where are we? Okay, so I'm going to use the top equation, equation A, because I think that one is easiest. So it's x plus y plus z equals 2, but I know that x is 0 and y is 2. So I get 2 plus z equals 2, subtract that 2 over, and I get z is also 0, so it's got to be choice 3. Now, that is the way I would want you to not do it if this was a multiple choice question on your final exam set up just like this one, okay? Because that was lengthy, okay? Lengthy for a multiple choice question. That's how you would have to do it if it was a part 2, 3, or 4 question. But this one was multiple choice. So we're going to be smart and use our answers to help us. So I'm just gonna kind of make some space. We're not gonna make this perfect. But that was my first method. You do want to know how to solve it that way, like I said, in case it ever shows up on a part 2, 3, or 4, okay? All right, so we're just gonna leave this a little sloppy, even though it's gonna drive me crazy. Nope, I can't do it, sorry. I got it erased perfectly. It's just the way I am. It's the way I is. Okay, so that was the way I would, again, prefer that you don't do this question. There are 2 shortcuts that you can use for this. So the first shortcut is notice all of your answers are in X, Y, Z form. You can take each answer and plug them in, but if you do it this way, it has to work in all 3 equations. So if I'm checking choice 1, which I know is wrong, I'm going to plug it into this first equation first. So it'd be -2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 2. So again, I plugged in X is -2, Y is 2, Z is 2. When you do this math, those cancel, and you do get 2 equals 2, but you got to check it in the next one too. So when I check the first choice in equation B, this is going to be -2 minus 2 times 2 minus 2 equals -4. So when I simplify this, it's -2 minus 4 minus 2 equals -4, and it does not. This will get me -8 equals -4. Those are not equal, so this is not the answer. So I'm not going to go through all of them with you like that, but like that is what you would do for all 4 choices. It's, again, a little lengthy, probably not the best shortcut. This next one I'm going to show you is better, but remember, this was the answer. So when it plugs into all of them, 0 plus 2 plus 0 equals 2, that works. This one is 0 minus 2 times 2 minus 0 equals -4. That also works. When you plug it into this one, 0 minus 9 times 2 plus 0 equals -18, and this is also -18 equals -18. So this is the one that works in all 3 equations. That's what you're looking for if you choose to do this shortcut. Okay. The other shortcut is entirely calculator-based, and it's using matrix. If you've never heard that before, you might not want to use this shortcut, but it is a really good way to check. So you could also, I do want to throw this out there, for a part 2, 3, or 4, if this question's on there, you can check by doing what I just showed you. Once you get your answer, plug it into all 3 of them and make sure it works, especially for aiming for mastery, you guys. They're quick and easy checks that you can do at the end of your exam when you don't want to think anymore and just plug into your calculator. Okay, so how to do the matrix is you're going to basically plug this system into your calculator and it's going to spit out the answer. So to get a matrix, you're going to press second and then 3 buttons down where it says X to the negative first. It actually says matrix right above it. You're going to click that and this is what will show up. So you have to edit your matrix first. You're going to go over to edit and I'm going to edit set A. So when you, I clicked clear again. When you guys reset your calculator, which I'm actually just going to do real quick, everything will be cleared out. Memory, reset, all memory. Maybe it won't let me on the app. It did not. So yours will be completely cleared out. So I'm just going to clear mine real quick. When you go to the matrix, there should be nothing in this. I'm just going to try. Oh my gosh. Pause for a second. I promise I'll explain. Okay, I'm just going to delete each of these. You know what, actually, so mine matches more like yours. I'm going to use set B. So starting from scratch, I apologize for that delay. Usually you can clear your calculator, everything is out, but I'm just going to use a different empty set. So you're going to press second matrix, so you're on this screen, and then you're going to click edit so that you're able to type your equation into your calculator. I'm going to go to set B. You can do B, you can do A, it doesn't matter. My A is just already full of numbers, so I'm going to go to B. Now, you want this to be 3 rows and 4 columns, so it's always going to be 3 by 4. And this is what you should be seeing right now, a 3 by 4. Because again, it's 1, 2, 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. And then you're going to type in the coefficients of your equation. So I'm going to fill in some of the blank ones, like this is a 1, this is a 1, this is a 1. So I'm going to type in 1, 1, 1, and then 2. So see how I have 1, 1, 1, 2. The next row is going to be 1, negative 2, negative 1, negative 4, and so on. 1, negative 9, 1, and negative 18. So you're just typing in all of these numbers. This was a negative 1. Remember, this was a negative 9, 1, 1, and so on. So these are all of the numbers that I'm plugging in just to basically tell my calculator what these equations are. Once you have it all typed in, you are going to press second mode. So second mode will bring you back to this like home screen. It's just second quit. It like quits you and brings you back home. For those of you that ever get stuck in your graph screen, by the way, second mode is how you get out of it. So now I'm going to hit second matrix again. What you're going to do is go over to math and go down to RREF. Remember what we talked about in class for my students? It's really, really extra fun, right? It's really, really extra fun to not have to do all of this. So I'm going to click enter for really, really extra fun. And then you have to tell your calculator that you're doing really, really extra fun to set A or B, whichever one you picked. So you have to hit second matrix one more time. Ultimately, you're hitting it 3 times. I'm going to go down to B because that's where I plugged in my info. If you plugged in for your info for A, select A, you pick whatever letter you did, and it should be looking like this, and you press enter. The way that you read this is, you know how it has that 1 on the top, the 1 in the middle, and the 1 on the bottom right? You're going to ignore those. You're going to look at the last column. So blah, 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 blah. I can't really draw my calculator, so just trust for now. Ignore all of this. This is your answer. It just does the math for you. 0, 2, 0, 0, 2, 0. That was the answer. It'll always be X, Y, Z. So I know that was a lengthy process with plugging all the numbers in and getting it in the matrix and pressing second matrix 3 times. I know it's a lot, but it does everything for you. So it's a really great shortcut. So if you want to study that, watch the process again. That was the other way to do it. Also, I repeat, if you had this question as a part 2, 3, or 4, you could solve it showing the way that I did in the very beginning with like steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then check your answer. Once you solve it, do the matrix to check your answer. It really doesn't take too long. And if you're at the end of your exam and you have extra time, it's a good way to fill it. Okay. Last question, number 12, is talking about roots again. Roots is where the graph crosses the x-axis. This one is a little bit harder. You can't really do the shortcut for this one that we did before. I'm actually just going to take you back to that real quick. If you remember, oh, it said zeros before. Zeros and roots are the same thing. It's where it crosses the x-axis. Know both of those words. But you can't do this one on your calculator because it's asking for the roots of something that's going to end up being imaginary. So when I go back down, look at your answers. 3 of them have an I in it. If there are imaginary roots, remember that looks something like this. It never crosses the x-axis. Remember that other one we just did looked like this and it crossed the x-axis a whole bunch. This one's not going to cross the x, so I can't do it that way. So what you're doing when it's asking you to solve for the roots is basically solving this equation. So when you're solving something that has an x squared and an x, step 1 is to always get it equal to 0. I'm going to start by adding the 13 over. So this one's going to be x squared minus 4x plus 13 equals 0. Now, you can try to factor it. You would ask yourself what multiplies to 13 and adds to 4, and unfortunately, there are no numbers that multiply to 13 and add to 4. So if it's not factorable, you need to immediately put your brain in the space that says, use the quadratic formula. When something does not factor, or even if it does, you can always use the quadratic formula to solve. Now, quadratic formula is also a huge hint when you have imaginary. We've never factored and gotten an I in the answer in this class, so quadratic formula is the way to go. It is on the reference sheet, so if you don't have it memorized, perfectly fine. But this is that quadratic formula, a little sloppy, I apologize, but I'm going to plug in my A, B, and C. So A is the first number, which is going to be a 1. B is the middle number, which is a -4. C is the last number, which is 13. So I'm going to plug this all in. So in the formula, in the very beginning, it's x equals negative, and then B is a -4. So I have that double negative there, which will turn into a positive. In parentheses, I'm going to plug in my B again, -4 squared, minus 4 times A, which is 1, times C, which is 13, all over 2 times A, which is, again, 1. Now, your next step is always to plug in just what's underneath the square root. So over here, I'm going to type in -4 squared minus 4 times 1, which I could have skipped, I guess, but just type it in anyway. And I get -36. So when I bring down the next step, I'm going to, oops, whoa, what? When I bring this down, it's going to be x equals +4, because that negative becomes a positive, plus or minus the square root of, this is just going to turn into -36 over 2. Now, you cannot divide yet, because I haven't finished simplifying this yet. 36 is a perfect square, but if you try to take the square root of -36 in your calculator, it tells you. I actually don't know if that works on all of your calculators or just the app, but it kind of stole my thunder. I was going to show you that it doesn't work. I think on your calculator it says non-real answer, but don't quote me on that. When it says non-real answer, or just so you know, and we should know this already being in this class, anytime you square root a negative, it's not real. So the square root of 36 is 6, but when you're square rooting that negative, it gets you an I. It tells you it's imaginary. And then that's still over 2. But now I can divide. 4 divided by 2 will get me 2, and 6i divided by 2 will get me 3i. So that's going to be my answer, 2 plus or minus 3i, which is choice 1. And I actually don't remember if you can check this, so I'm just going to do something real quick. I think you can, but just pause for 1 second. -4 times 2 plus 3. You can. Okay, so you can also use the shortcut for this question. It's a different shortcut or a check, whatever you need. If you didn't know how to do this question, though, you want to know any other way, there's always another way. Not always, but a lot of the time there's another way. Okay, so for this question, when it's asking you to solve, this is a different shortcut that we haven't done yet. If you're being, it's actually kind of like the last one. If you're being asked to solve, it's giving you sample answers. What you can do is take those answers and plug them into your equation to make sure they work. So this answer, technically there's 2 of them. There's 2 plus 3i and 2 minus 3i. Even though it's imaginary, it does still work. You are going to take that answer one at a time and plug it into your equation everywhere you see an x. So you're going to type in 2 plus 3i squared minus 4 times 2 plus 3i. And when you do, if it's the right answer, it'll equal -13. So I wanted to verify it worked first, and I already typed it in, but look over here on the left at my calculator. I typed that in, and I got -13, which means it works. I also should check to make sure that it works when there is a minus, so I'm going to change this to a minus. And I also got -13. So that was my answer right away. If I wanted to try choice 2, it is 2 plus 6i. So I'm going to change this to a 6 and a 6. And I got -40. -40 does not equal -13. This is an awesome check. So that one, wrong. Goodbye. You can do the same thing with the other 2 examples as well. Just plug them in for x, see if they work. Of course, it's choice 1 because we already figured that out. Now, I do also want to say, I know I talk a lot, but I'm just trying to give you helpful hints. If this was a part 2 question and you use the quadratic formula and you got the answers, 2 plus or minus 3i, you can still check it even though it's not multiple choice. Take your answer, type that in your calculator, make sure it works. What if you accidentally got like 2 plus or minus 5i? you would check it, realize it doesn't work, and then try again, go back and fix it. Okay, these checks and these tricks that I'm showing you are designed to help. Okay, even on the part 2s, 3s, and 4s, they're just much more kind of in your face when it's multiple choice because you can just plug the answers into your calculator. So that was 1 through 12. I know it was a lot. I tried to give you as many details as possible, but good luck. You've got this. Keep studying. You can do it.